All right. Good morning, everybody. Stephen and Contreras with CFI, Compassion Finance of Bella here this morning. We're going to be talking to Dr. Baird about practice acquisition. It seems like something I read in the news every day. Either a DSO is gobbling up another DSO, or one of my friends' prominent practices have gone to a DSO, or one of my friends is retiring. I know I have friends who are retiring already, and maybe they are transitioning over to sell to an associate or sell to a DSO themselves. So I wanted to talk to Dr. Baird today about that because I think there's even some interesting aspect of Abella that we'll get to in the discussion section that we can talk about. But Dr. Baird, I wanted to let you take it away here and kind of give us some of your thoughts about what it means to kind of have that type of transition in your business.
Yeah, there's the word transition, can mean a lot of things. And, my input in that arena, I've done transitions my entire career, as far as bringing in associates and have the thought process that I want to, at some point, transition my business and retire, or transition my business to where I'm bringing in associates so that I can sell a portion of my business to them. So there's a lot of different ways you can transition. It seems like the popular way of transitioning today seems to be selling to a DSO. Now, I know that many of you that are listening, either you're early in your career, don't know, but I certainly would love for you to throw some questions down for us in the chat screen, or in the questions in the Q&A, because it really depends on where you're at in your career. My suggestion is always begin with the end in mind. So you're going to grow a practice. Maybe you're a super GP, you're doing everything on your own, and you think it's time that you need to bring an associate in, and you want to transition to where you're doing more of a certain type of dentistry. And that can be done in a lot of different ways. And what you're doing is basically, and what I had done in our own practice, is I brought in an associate, let that associate build up, and you can do something called an equity associateship, where, let's say you're paying that associate 35% or 30% of collections. And what you do is you value the practice at that point, and you begin to put aside 5% more. So now it's 35% you're paying the associate. That 5% goes into an escrow account, and that additional amount of money sits there. It's kind of a hook into the associate. They begin to get a mentality that is more of an ownership mentality, which I can tell you, Jeff Buski, my partner for years, he was always doing around, I don't know, $75,000, $80,000, $85,000 a month in production. And, and he did all kinds of different dentistry. And this is 15, 16 years ago. And when he became an equity associate and we began the process of doing that, his production jumped by about 50%. He was now doing 120,000 a month. And I was like, what changed? What made it different? What made it different was the ownership mentality. And so that type of a transition can be very, very good, because you can actually bring an associate in, and then that 5%, if they decide to leave and go somewhere else, well, you keep that 5%. If they decide, to stay, and it's usually over a 5-year period, and at the end of 5 years, they put in, they've been working, and now they've got 100,000, 150, 200,000 down payment, and you can get bank financing, which can be very advantageous for you. You're getting your cash up front. Now, I know when you're transitioning, some dentists want to carry their own financing. My suggestion would be probably not to do that. I would rather see an equity associateship work over about a 5-year period. Or what are some of your other options? Well, let's say you did sell to a DSO. Well, what are they going to want from you? And this, again, another strategy in transition. What do they want? Well, they're going to buy your practice, but they want you to stay. Don't don't be mistaken. They want you. Ideally for them, for you to stay 5 years would be great, because they're paying you over usually the last year, last 2 years, productivity, collections, and your EBITDA during that time, which is your earnings before interest, taxes. So that part of the question would be, do you want to stay around? If you're at the end of your career, at the beginning of your career, you can begin to bring associates in that are purchasing portions of your practice. And let me explain that and go back to the DSO. So let's say the whole practice, when you had the practice yourself, was doing $1 million a year. And you brought an associate in and you went through an equity associateship. And the practice now is valued. And at the end of 2, 3, 4, 5 years, now the practice is doing $2 million a year. Well, you still own 50%, and your associate owns 50%, but it's still worth $1 million. You sold, and you can do this over and over again, where you have 3 associates or 3 partners, 4 partners, and I see that a lot where there's 4 partners. Now they're doing $4 million a year, and you still own your $1 million piece. And there's always a right of first refusal when you do that with partners, and that works out extremely nicely. Now let's go on forward to the associate, where you're selling out to, not an associate, but where you're actually selling to a DSO. You're going to want to plan to stay, for 2 to 5 years. That's fine. You're going to find that your salary is going to actually go down a little bit, but you're taking cash up front. And I've seen a lot of guys on the Facebook groups that have been selling their practices to DSOs, and they're only in their mid 30s. That I don't understand necessarily. I don't know why you would take a business that you built and was profitable, because you're just getting into the real profit years. I would say probably 10 years in, from 10 to 25 years in practice, you'll see that practice going like this. I mean, it is growing, and it makes it, it makes it interesting to me to see people selling their practice, because what you're going to find is you're not going to make as much money on a monthly basis. So you're getting prepaid for a certain number of years. Now, when I sold my practice, I figured I was getting 17 years of salary. So I figured, okay, I'll take a decrease in monthly revenue, knowing that I was getting up front 17 years. I waited till I was almost 55 years old, 56 before I sold. So it's something that you really need to be aware of. Why are you selling? What's your intention? The other option that you have always is going to be the option of just an outright sale. List your practice, say, you'll stay around for a couple of months and introduce patients, the patients to the new doctor that's buying in. But that has its own, there are certain reasons for that. Sometimes we see that for medical reasons. Sometimes we just see the docs never really wanted to work with anybody else, doesn't want to have associates, doesn't want to have any of that stuff, and just wants to sell the practice. Back in the old days, people used to just work and then close their doors. Well, now, fortunately or unfortunately, one of the biggest parts of your future value or your savings is the value of your practice. Many dentists have not put away money in their 401ks and done all the things that they need to be doing, but they count on that practice sale. And that's really where compassionate finance can come in. I had a good friend of mine that sold his practice in Florida. In his last year of practice, he did $860,000 worth of compassionate finance, meaning these are notes payable to them or to him. And when he sold his practice, he took that account receivable with him. And so he moved over to West Palm Beach and in Florida and lived on that for 4 years. So he had monthly revenue coming in every single month, which was, he loved it. Now he's over in Venice, Florida, and opening up another practice. And so he was there are different reasons to transition. He just wanted to take some time off, enjoy life. He was a single guy and just said, I'm going to sell my practice, and if I need to open back up, I will. And he just recently did. So So there's lots of reasons that you can look at transitioning your business, and whether it's a straight outright sale, whether it's a sale to a DSO, whether it is transitioning into a more of a super group where you're bringing in associates and turning them into partners. And the equity associateship, I think, is personally is a really, really nice way of doing that. So um, if there are any questions, if anybody has any questions, you can, pop them down there. And Stephen, do you have any thoughts on top of your head about it?
Yeah, I do. And one of the things that like kind of drove me to say like, hey, I'd like to talk about this is the aspect of Abella and something you kind of mentioned about moving the accounts receivable around a little bit. So our friend, Dr. Nacho, Dr. Paul Goodman, has told me that he kind of helps some of these deals kind of take place, helps negotiate and things
It
like that.
does.
And he says that, sometimes $40,000, $60,000 of accounts receivable sitting out there, people want to walk away because nobody can agree on how that they can be collected or which side gets what or how that works.
Yeah.
And we kind of discussed like, hey, how could a Bella be brought into that situation where maybe the person who is purchasing or somebody's getting their AR all cleaned up before they go? Like, what are your kind of thoughts on a Bella, using a Bella as a tool to kind of maybe make smooth the transition? As
Yeah, the cool part about a Bella is it's automated. So I mean, it's what you don't want to do is you don't want to leave collectible revenue on the books, because you're selling it and you're not going to get a good price for it. The value of an account receivable goes down drastically when you start looking at 90 days out. Well, what's been amazing about Abella is, what if you could collect 50% of everything of 90 days or greater, but you're only going to get paid 10%? Well, I'd rather go ahead and collect it ahead of time. So, I want to clean up my AR. If I'm selling the practice, I definitely want to. Now, as somebody who may be a purchaser of practices, now, you may buy a practice and realize they have an enormous amount of AR that they haven't worked and they haven't done anything. First thing I would do, if I was buying a practice, I would stick a Bella in, and I guarantee you're going to be able to fund an enormous amount of your purchase price just off of AR. Because people don't expect to get a lot of old AR. You're not going to have, it's not a situation where you're going to get 70 cents on the dollar for everything that's owed to you. You're going to get, if it's 30 or less, you'll get 80% of that. And you just kind of go down the list, and each one of them have their own value. So, but it's a great tool to go ahead and collect without having to pick up the phone. I mean, it's literally automated. And that's what I love. We just did a deal with one of the large DSOs that they gave us about $5.5 million worth of AR that was just out there, all over 90, some of it over a year old, some over 2 years old. And we've been able to collect out of that 5 million. We were able to collect just under 800,000 in like the first 3 weeks. So it's like, wow, that's a lot of money that was just sitting there that no one is going to collect. So really important when you start looking at that transition and that transition opportunities that you have. So I, I would definitely use a Bella in either side of that. If I'm selling, I'd put a Bella in play. If I'm buying, I would just, when I first day in, I'd plug a Bella in, and that's going to give you cash flow. In our practice, in the first 25 days, we collected $77,000. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. It's just been sitting on the books. And so it's just found money as far as the way I look at it. And compassionate finance can be done also. uh, you know, the last 2 or 3 years, we have doctors that have over $1 million in paper or debt paper. And so that's something that can make a huge difference. So, yeah, that's the upside of Bella for sure. And we have special deal going, and you can tell them about that, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. You can try a Bella in your practice. We'll get it hooked up. It integrates with 90 90% plus of dental software. So we'll get it plugged into your practice. We can get you trained on how to use it. And it really is that magic money machine Dr. Baird was talking about. Again, Dr. Nacho, we were in the conversation and he said, well, let's see what my investment's been, because he didn't get the free trial. He pays out of pocket. So $299 a month for him. So
Yep.
2 months, he paid $600. And within the first 5 weeks, he recouped $13,000. He's like, I like the numbers here. So he's been pretty passionate about it. And his office manager is going to be delivering me a testimonial about, I love the office manager side of things. So it's like, oh, he's dragging another thing in where you're going to have to try this. And it's not, the doctor goes and he brings back so many things that I'm supposed to test out and try. And this is when she's like, okay, you got me on this one. This has saved me. She says it's my magical hour retrieval, because she said it's saving her about 9 hours a month of just.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But if anybody has questions, you can always send me questions. I do a podcast, the Productive Dentist Podcast. We also do this on a regular basis. You can send it to bruce@productivedentist.com. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions either in a webinar on live, what we're doing now. Either way, we'll answer those questions for you. So appreciate you guys being on today, and look forward to next week and the holidays. I'd like to next week talk about kind of what are the game plans. What's everybody's game plan for 2021? What are the things you need to look at as you face a new year? A little bit of uncertainty, but that's kind of like my dad told me, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. The Marine Corps, that's the way it is. And so I'll share with you some of the things that we do at the end of every year. And that is something that I think would be valuable. So thank you guys for being on today, and have a great day.
All right. We'll see you next week with that year-end breakdown and get you ready for 2021. Thank you. Have a good rest of your week.
We'll do it.